All right, Johnny Wonder here with GolfWRX. We're here live at the Kingdom. I am here with Chief Engineer for TaylorMade Golf for irons, wedges, putters, just a lab giant, Paul Dymkowski. Paulie, how are you doing? Yeah, good to be here. So we're talking about wedges here. And, you know, we get a lot of questions in the forums and just in general. You guys have the mill grind 2 and the high toe. High toe came out. Nobody knew what to make of it.
Yep.
It was a new look, new everything. And then the mill grind 2 came out. My suspicion is that the technology from the high toe bleeds into the new one. I need you, the smart guy, to explain the technology in each of them and how they bleed in together.
Sounds good. So firstly, with the high toe, the whole story was getting that higher CG for lower launch and more spin.
Okay.
So obviously the namesake high toe, getting that geometry to be taller, help with that. And then with that weight we're adding up top, we had to take the weight down below. So the biggest story was just having that high CG for low launch, more spin, but then also working on something that improved versatility around the greens. So with the score lines going all the way down to the toe for the high lofted skews, we heard a lot of feedback from tour players that when they're playing shots around the green where the ball might be sitting up on the rough and they kind of come too low underneath it and it hits high in the toe, if there's no score lines there, it'll kind of knuckle out and fall short. So that helped with the control and the distance as well. Not to mention that higher toe geometry, translating more energy to the ball.
So you said high center of gravity, so the ball comes out lower with more spin.
Yeah.
Is that, because for the general golfer, you know, they get a wedge in the hand, they see loft, they think up in the air.
Yeah.
That's just where your eyes go. But for the tour, those guys like to hit their wedges lower. Most good players like to hit their wedges. So that's a response to get your average golfer to hit it lower and also please the better players.
Exactly.
Is that fair enough?
And that's what we hear on tour is they just want to launch it low with tons of spin. And what does that mean? That means control for them. When they get something that's kind of balloon up there with not much spin, they don't have as much control, whether it be wind or what they're trying to achieve with their shot. So that's what the best players in the world are looking for. So we want to have a club that would help the average golfer achieve that as well.
Which is a unique aspect, because usually when you have a tour-driven product, it's not made for everybody, right? Your guys aren't trying to, like, by effect, get the general golfer to also do that. You guys kind of did this with this, which is kind of a weird way in.
Yeah.
Because it does benefit the normal golfer to hit it lower, right?
That's a really good point, where this, anybody's going to have that benefit because of that CG position and because of that design. The magnitude might be different. You know, it might not be launching it 27 degrees with 10,000 RPMs like Jon Rahm, but you're definitely going to launch it lower and have more spin than your old traditional wedge.
Which is what every golfer should want.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You take this technology, the high center of gravity, and then a few months later, say a year later, you guys come out with a mill grind 2. My suspicion told me when I first saw it, I was like, okay, they're trying to blend this higher center of gravity technology into a conventional looking wedge, which if you see the stuff on the back, you know, you see some weight start to creep up the face a little bit. So explain to me first the CG properties of this one, and then also we're going to talk about the face.
That's definitely obviously one of the most noticeable things of this wedge is that thick, thin technology, we call it. The main reason actually isn't CG that we did it, it was for sound and feel.
Okay.
So we got feedback that our MG1 wedges could sound a little bit better. So we have this tool that we have in R&D that we use on metalwoods. It's this kind of predictive analysis, it's called the optimization tool, that shows you the internal ribbing structures you want of a driver to yield a certain sound, frequency, duration, things like that. So we said, well, let's try it on a wedge. So you basically take your CAD model, you select the surface, this being the surface on a wedge, that you can populate with geometry to yield what you want. You type in what you want for your sound parameters, and it basically started to populate the back of the wedge with this kind of triangular geometry.
Okay.
And what that does is it stiffens it up there in the hitting area to get the frequency where you want it, knock down the duration for a better sound, but we're adding weight doing that. So we had to take weight down from below, and we have this TPU insert, which also helps with sound.
Okay.
But a byproduct of that is the CG was raised marginally.
Because a little weight's going up.
Exactly.
Right?
Not to the extent that we have in high toe. We want to keep differentiation between those two, but a little bit higher than what we had with MG1 because we know there's a benefit for that higher CG.
And when you say typing in the sound into your computer, it's literally a decibel. Like you're trying to, like, I want it to be at 1 decibel.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You type that in,
your
and
decibels,
it
your
replicates
hertz, your duration, all those things we can control.
That's the nerdiest thing I've
Yeah, it's pretty
ever heard
incredible.
of.
The analytical tools we have are really powerful.
Okay, now let's get to the face, because that's the big story with this thing, right? It's a raw face and a chrome polished wedge. So talk to everybody about why. Like, why the raw face? What does it do?
Yeah, so tour players have been playing raw wedges for forever, as long as the game's been around.
Right.
And there's a reason for that. They perform better. But They haven't done well commercially because nobody wants to see a rusty raw wedge out on a store shelf.
I do, but most people.
Yeah, most people don't,
yeah.
and most people don't get it or understand it. So we're able to execute that in a more premium way where the whole head is chrome or our black finish and just the face is raw. So a really unique execution. So the benefits of raw is that you're omitting that plating thickness. Believe it or not, we hear from tour, there's an audible click that little plating thickness adds. So we've heard that it feels and sounds better as a result of being raw instead of having the chrome.
Cool. We're gonna go out and hit some shots with Trottie. We're gonna put all of your science, Paulie, through the ringer. You're a
Cool.
good man. It's good to
Thanks,
see you,
Johnny.
man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Likewise.
you got it. We're gonna go out with Trottie and hit some shots. Here we go. I'm here with the guy, Director of Sports Marketing, Chris Trottie.
Good to see
Always
you.
a pleasure.
Thanks for coming by.
Absolutely. So we're talking wedges here. I just talked to Paulie in there in the lab. He gave me all the science, but in reality, for the general golfer,
Yep.
what's the difference? How do they work? Like, just I want to walk through this. So go full Trottie on me and tell me what the hell.
So in the last 15, 20 months, I've been given these emotional categories, and that's what this is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Drivers are great, and we've got TrackMan, and you can dial it all in, launch, spin, and everything. But when you get down to this is the real business end, this and the putters. It's all in. So as Paulie will have gone through, there's a lot of great things that have come about on this, but it's very difficult area with tour players because you're trying to do something that does so many things. You don't just hit fades or draws or high-low. You're gonna have, as you know, so many different scenarios around a golf course, and then that changes based on where you are in the world, based on how firm the turf is at the Open Championship versus East Coast versus West Coast. So it's a very emotional category, so you're always battling with that. And then, as you quite rightly mentioned, we've got high toes and we've got mill grind twos now, all of which have these new faces on them, this raw face that is trying to give you the spin. You can see this one here has already started to wear, and you've got the laser etching between the grooves. And I think one of the things that frustrates me a little bit about these just coming out, I think I've seen, and I want to put it to bed early in this setup, I've seen people out there who've got the wedge and they've either gone on Instagram or gone on Twitter or wherever these days, and they're going, right, I'm trying to speed up the rust process.
Right.
It's the worst thing in the world, because basically you want to let this rust on its own. Obviously your wedge looks primo from that angle, and in the bag it looks primo, as these do.
Sure.
But you do want it to rust, but you don't want to speed up the process, because if you fake rust it, you basically fill the grooves in and you actually lose the benefits of it.
Okay.
Because the whole point of the rust is when you get into the rough or when you play early in the morning, the friction it creates between the ball, there's nothing between the ball and the club, right? So there's no chrome plating, there's nothing, so you get more spin out of it, especially if you're in a wet fairway or you're in a wet rough or whatever. But don't speed up that. I mean, it's one of my bugbears is people think, oh, I've got to speed it up. No, you'll go the other way and make it not spin as much.
The appeal to the general consumer, obviously WRX crowd's a different.
I get it.
They're gear geeks, right?
Yep.
So like for me, my eyes go, if I see a raw wedge, I'm like, that's raw, that's
Yep.
badass, that's the one I want.
I'm with the WRX guys,
Yeah.
obviously. I mean, I get it. I'm as much of a tech geek as the next of them, which is why now, I think if you actually get into it, these black ones, I mean, this whole Batman affair is just midnight out, murdered out. It's legit, and it looks primo.
Right. Everybody's chasing low launch, high spin
Yeah.
wedges for the most
Lower
part.
launch, more
right.
spin, you're right.
So a guy like Rahm, it's high, committed to the high toe version of the wedge, and you have guys like Rory, DJ Day, Tiger, are all in this style wedge. Why?
Emotional category.
Okay.
It goes straight back to what I say at the top. It's an emotional category. And that's why we're always trying to find ways to bring technology into every area. And I think the one thing that I've learned this last 12 months, and this came recently from a conversation I had with Tiger, because his soul is very different again.
Yes.
He grinds a lot off at the leading edge, then he has the middle piece, then he has the relief in the heel and the toe. So he has the four-way camber at the back, he has his set bounce in the middle, and then this extremely sharp leading edge. His words to me were, okay, I want that because wherever I go in the world, I don't want to change bounces.
Wedges. Right,
I just don't want to. I can take fresh grooves, but I don't want to change bounces. I watched Jon, like I say, pitch there, and on the same thing, these guys, if Jon stood here, are setting the shaft lean before they hit the shot. So they're setting the camber to which part they want to interact with the turf before they hit the shot, and then they're committed. And again, having spoken to Tiger about it, I said to him, look, I happen to have a set of your old wedges, I want to try them. And he said, look, just commit to whatever shot you choose before you hit it. If you deviate,
you're done.
You're toast.
Right.
And you know, you're basically laying the sod, or it's just, it's like, you know how it is. If you think it's a 6-iron, but it could be a 5, you're in between, you're just losing
got
money.
problems.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's when we get into all this. But back to Jon's point, he feels with all this mass up here, and these boys will hit. I've had great conversations with players all around the world about playing chip shots downhill, down grain, and they'll actually hit them out the toe.
Yeah.
And that, you know, if you've got grooves out here, tour players are using it. You can see from people practicing here at the Kingdom with this demo that it's actually worn out into the toe.
Yeah.
I mean, you can play shots out in the toe with these wedges, and it's all part of a soft, dead feel and flight.
Just to see, I want to try out a few, I want to see the differences between the two wedges, just in real terms. So we're going to hit some shots. We're going to go over here in this unbelievable space here at the Kingdom, and here we go.
You've used the bounce on that, and you can see you're warming up now as the results are getting better, but almost forget the results. Pick your shot, which you've now done. You know, you want that trajectory you just had. Your hands don't look too far in front, so we're not going to use the front too much. If this was firmer turf, we would use the front. That one you didn't turn through as good with the body, and I can see when I'm looking down, like, that's deeper.
Yes.
This is good. That was the good shot. That's deep.
Okay.
This is acceptable. For turf like this, I would straight away turn around and say, okay, let's go with this. Slightly wider sole.
This is what I'm playing right now.
This is the 60-10, this is the 4-way camber, this is the Jon Rahm one, and this, listen to that. I was talking over it, but you could see it, you could hear it. That is money right there. And look at the divot though. The grass hasn't given away too. Now, a lot of people hit balls off here, so it's not the easiest pitching turf.
Right.
And that's gone through perfectly. These grooves aren't brand new because it's a demo wedge. Again, good. Now, I know, looking at your technique, nice, you play a little bit of golf, you're a good player. So you could argue if we were going to do this the long way round, I might have said to you, I've got a 58 here with an ATV grind on it. I'll talk about that in a sec, but the sole is wider. I might have passed you this.
Okay.
This would be in my conversation with you moving forward, but I'd look at other shots. Again, listen to that. Perfect. Went through perfectly. So straight away, I'm fitting you and I'm saying, listen, I get it. It's classic. It's beautiful. It's murdered out. It looks badass. But this is a wider sole. This has got ATV. ATV is this ridge down the middle that we're talking about. You can see, I talked about it earlier, it's got the front edge, so if you set the angle, then you're going to use the front. It's got this cutout. This came about with Justin Rose, who's a big exponent of this. He helped us out massively. Also quite a bit with Paul Mcginley. Paul McGinley's been with TaylorMade for years, old Ryder Cup captain in Europe. And again, it's trying to find a piece where you don't need this middle belly, but you can use this back ridge when you get in the sand. It pushes the sand out the way. And I think in this scenario, one of these two wedges is going to fit this. So straight away, we're down to two wedges. I pulled a Bigfoot as well.
Let's see what this thing does.
Yeah, this should be pretty good out of this lie. But if you go like this, like straight away you put the ball a bit further back. Don't do that, play it middle. Play the same shot you've been playing. And that's what you've got to look out for when you're fitting. Okay, good, right? You didn't get that. But look at the result. That you'd take that, right?
Yeah.
So that's a good result on a shot that you didn't quite get. But the problem comes, play the ball a bit further forward, open the blade.
Okay.
Now you're going to have open the blade, play it forward.
This way?
Yeah. Now hit it a bit firmer. Now you're going to start to have problems because you're a good player, you're using the bounce correctly, and you are hurting what you're trying to do because there's too much flange.
Oh, God.
So it's a funny feeling for you, which then, so straight away, like I feel like if we're fitting, we can get into these two bounces for you, because for this shot on this turf, it's the right kind of area. Now play me a runner. Play one that starts short and runs up, just literally lands on the fringe, and you will use a different part of the bounce. Draw it in there. There you go. Now you're going against the slope. Like it. And it was hopping around the hole.
It was.
And that's what you've got to do. You've got to get fun, you've got to get creative with the shots, and you've got to take advantage of the facility. The other thing is, when you're ordering your wedges, don't be afraid to get heavy swing weights so you can feel the head. so that when you play the shot, when you let the club set, very much like a Shane Lowry or a Seve Ballesteros, when you let the club set in the backswing, you can feel the head.
Get a little
That's
bit of
what you
mass
want.
back there.
Exactly, and then you can feel, you can feel it coming through. And that's what you should try and do, just throw the bounce at it. Feel the set, there you go, and now you got the sound. And you drew that one in there. It's a different shot to the other ones you played, and you got the zip.
That's the 50, 60 yard pitch. I want to go a little closer to the green and see what else we can find. This is a shot for like the higher handicaps. It's kind of the rally killer. You hit it right in front of the green, you're there in 2 or 3, and you get this. Looks mindless, looks easy enough, grinds, bounces, all that stuff comes more into play here, I think, than most, right?
Because the turf is now a bit firmer, tighter. Okay? So technique's a premium as well.
Okay, so
pick your shot. That will be the first thing we talked about. It set the part of the wedge you want to use. Not bad. And then let's flip it, and you can actually see, you know, we could put some Sharpie on there, like that's what I might do, but you can see that you're going to start to use the front part of the bounce. You can do that, like Sharpie it up and see what happens. Again, ears are the best thing. Spun nicely, great strike, you're using the correct part of the bounce. I mean, for me, you and this wedge fitting are screaming out like 60-10 four-way camber in a high toe.
Literally what's in my bag right now.
Yeah, you're doing a nice job. Okay, that was interesting. Bit deeper.
Yep.
Hence we got the turf interaction. Good. Let's get back into more conventional mill grind.
So really quick question. So we're on wet ground here.
Yep.
And part of the thing that Paulie talked about was the wet face and the wet ball, and that you guys have that spray test that you do.
Yeah.
So we're out here, it's wet, right?
Yep.
So really quickly explain to me how this technology kicks in when it is wet.
So when you get a scenario like this, what are we? We're 10 past 11, so the morning dew is still roughly around, but it's for when you get grass that's a little bit longer than this. Yeah. And also when you get maybe a shot from here to the back pin. That was interesting, right? That was your biggest divot so far with the conventional. Anyway, the point is when you have more of a shot from here to the back flag and you're playing off of the wet turf, that raw face and the fact that there's nothing, it's interesting, these are popping a bit more. I'd say you're using more of the back of the bounce.
That's as deep dive as I've seen on wedges, right? Like especially TaylorMade wedges, and I think like what we touched upon, even me, I'm cocky. Like I feel like I know everything, and I learned some stuff today.
Good.
I definitely learned some stuff today, and I think, you know, for the folks at home, people on WRX, like these guys aren't making wedges just to make new wedges. There's always an improvement. There's always an extra thing that they can give to the general consumer or the general golfer or the tour players. There's always a reason. So it's not, we need to put out a new wedge, it's 2020.
Yeah.
We got something new, it's gonna help the golfer. So I'm experiencing it now. Like I didn't really understand the difference between the two wedges, I do now.
For my career, I've had 15 years at TaylorMade, and for 11 or 12 of them, I've fit tour players for metal woods. The fact now that I'm spending more and more time in this category, well, like we said, this emotional category, the stuff you can learn from these guys, doing exactly what I've done with you, but with them, it's just no end. And then obviously there's the engineers like Paulie that you spoke to earlier. It just all connects in, and you build this vault of knowledge that you can use. But I always think, and I think this has been a nice demonstration of it, you should try and lean on the player first, in this case yourself, and find out what they truly want and where they want to go, and then just try and tweak them slightly. But game looks pretty good. I mean, you should be in good shape here.
I think we'll be okay. I mean, the last question I want to ask is like driver fitting, iron fitting, all that stuff is important. Wedge and ball fitting.
It's the money.
That's what I've been trying to express that to my listeners on the podcast and everything. Like getting fit for the wedges and the ball, in my opinion, in this day and age, could be more important than getting fit for the big sticks, because that's where the money's made.
I think TrackMan can validate everything when it comes to woods, when it comes to irons, and yes, when it comes to 70-yard pitches, TrackMan can validate. But when you get into this area,
you need a Trottie.
You needs to be less chirp and more listen, and just make sure you pick out the right things.
Want to thank, dude, I always love seeing you.
Really nice to see you.
Yeah, that was fun.
Awesome to have you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for everything you guys are doing, and to your listeners, it's awesome.
Well, we're blessed to be able to be here. So we're at the Kingdom. Want to thank Chris Trott, TaylorMade Golf, Paulie Demkowski, who's not on camera, but he gave us the full nerd session before this thing started. It's Johnny Wonder, Golf WRX. We are out of here.